Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today's going to be my full review and discussion of this very attractive Wharncliffe design from QSP. This is the QSP Pelican Wharncliffe blade. As you can see, micarta handles, which are absolutely gorgeous. QSP sent me this knife a while back, but I held off reviewing it, and I've kind of been on the fence about it because it did have some issues right out of the gate. But this is such a cool design and such a nice looking knife that I really just I thought, you know what, let's go ahead and get a review out there. So. As you can see, I've already mentioned the blade. I mentioned the micarta titanium clip here. Overall, I think this is a beautiful knife, guys. I think, in fact, of what QSP has out there in their lineup right now, this has got to be, if not my favorite, right up there with about my favorite design. And of course, the size and weight on this is right up my alley as well. So really quickly, 8 and 5/16 is the overall length, 3 and 11/16 on the blade. So just a hair over 3 and 5/8, 4 and 5/8 on the blade. On the handle. Okay, so that's the closed length here, like that. 4 inches of grip area. In fact, it's a little more than 4 inches if you had to use every bit of it, but I'm imagining you probably don't want your pinky right back here. And weighs in at 4.5 ounces. So size, weight, and carry, very, very nice. I have no complaints about that whatsoever. I also have no complaints about the blade whatsoever. In fact, I think it's fantastic. Let's take a look at that. I do have a couple of fingerprints on here. Forgive me for that, but S35 VN, multi-directional satin grind on here that looks really, really fantastic. Nice and thin behind the edge. Now, out of the box, this wasn't the sharpest knife I've ever had. I mean, it was passable, but I have touched this up and it took an edge very, very nicely. Reasonably good blade stock. You can see that they've got a bit of a chamfer on here. They've just softened that corner a little bit. So very, very impressive blade if you like Wharncliffes. If you're not a Wharncliffe guy, that's going to be a different story. But from the standpoint of a guy who does enjoy a Wharncliffe blade, very, very nice. Okay, moving on to lockup and deployment. Now here's where some things were a little bit sketchy at the beginning. Initially, the main complaint is, and I need to get this out of the way right away. There were some of these where the lock was failing. So I want to put that out there for a couple of reasons. One, to give QSP some credit, I did contact them about this, and they were very, very receptive. They said, look, we know it became a problem. We fixed it, and we're making sure that anyone who has issues with theirs is getting a new one. So really, really happy to hear all of that. So that's the first thing. And I've got to say, I've got to give QSP some credit, 'cause there's been a couple of times where I complained about something, I touched base with them, and they were like, hey, we get it, we're working on it. And they have responded very well to sort of that customer feedback, or when they make a mistake, they've really tried to fix it. And I think that's laudable. All right. Now, the other thing that I need to mention here, and something that's not quite as easily fixable, is the liner. So the liner here is just a little tough to access. I mean, it's not the worst thing ever or anything like that, but I feel like I really have to jam my thumb in there to get this knife to unlock. Now, a knife that looks this good and that I enjoy this much, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to be a little inconvenienced by that, but I don't love it. I feel like this relief cut needed to be a little more aggressive, or perhaps this liner needed to come out a little bit more. You can actually see how they've relieved it back a little bit from the edge of this micarta. If they'd at least given me that extra 1/16 of an inch or something, it could have made all the difference. We may not even be having this conversation. Outside of that, lockup and deployment is very, very good. And the thing is, the detent is definitely adequate. It's not the nicest detent, but it's snappy enough that the knife deploys consistently. My big complaint is just accessing that lock bar, which I'm not in love with. So if you're watching this QSP, a slight modification to make that a little more accessible would be very much appreciated. If you own one of these and if you love it, you could easily take a Dremel and just remove some extra material there to make that a little more accessible as well. That's not something I'm not saying it's okay that they blew it, but I'm just saying if you just love this design so much, that would be a potential fix for you. Okay, so lockup and deployment is pretty good, but it's got a couple of issues there, and so that's where really the bulk of the negativity is. Moving on to the handle, which once again I'm going to be quite positive about. The handle is really, really nice. One, I love the look of this micarta. I really like the blue titanium, just adds a little bit of character and color to this. The texturing is great. They've milled out the liners. Take a look in there. Let's see. Let's do it this way. There you go. So you can see that's quite heavily milled out. Very, very impressive. Feels really, really good in hand. All right, especially I'm mostly a saber grip guy. In a hammer grip, it's good. In a saber grip, it's fantastic. Reverse grip, it's okay. The thing is, these are pretty wide handles, and this nice contouring around the edges means that they're going to be pretty darn good. Not to mention, highly attractive. I just love the look of micarta. I really, really do. So I think that part as well is definitely a win. Okay, so that's my handle discussion. No issues at all. I guess I didn't mention single position pocket clip, which is not, it works really, really good. Goes in and out of pocket very well. And of course, you've got that little hole there for a lanyard. You'd have to fight, I think, to get paracord through there, but I think it would be doable. Let's grab some comparisons. That's the next place we want to go with this. There is one obvious comparison that is a recent release from Spyderco, of course, being the Canis. I will say the one thing I like more about the Canis is that very accessible compression lock. All right, and of course, if you're a Spyderco guy, that's a different story. But I don't, I think both of these designs are quite attractive. I wouldn't call one like way, way better looking than the other at all. I actually really find both of these to be very attractive. And you've got to be a fan of Wharncliffe knives. Let's get that out of the way, and we'll throw in a couple of other things. I don't have any artisan knives around, but I do have the CJRB, so I want to throw that in just because it's, I feel like QSP and Artisan sort of came on the scene around the same time. We've got another overseas produced knife. This is the Riot Iron, totally different class, of course, but both micarta, so I wanted to throw that in there. Totally love that knife, absolutely beautiful. What do we got here? Para 2, more for size comparison than anything. Let's see, I've got the Manix 2 lockback here as well. There it is by the Manix 2 lockback, not Wharncliffe. Although I will say this that I find kind of interesting. The Manix and even the Iron to a certain degree have sort of that extra drop on the drop point. So the tip is kind of down lower, making them a little bit more sheepfoot-ish, if you will. We've got the new SOG Flash here. Throw that guy in. And I guess that's about enough for comparisons. Most of those are not very good direct competitors, but I guess some of them are. I think this guy comes in around 120. So stuff like the Para 2 and the Manix and even the Canis would be in that ballpark. All right. So what are my overall thoughts on this? Do I recommend it? Is this a knife that I would say you need to be running out to buy? Well, not necessarily running out to buy, but I do think the design is fairly compelling. And if you're a huge fan of it, if you think it's as attractive as I do, then I wouldn't be surprised to see you running out to buy one. All right, what I would say is just make sure that wherever you get it from, either you go into a bricks and mortar store where you can handle the knife yourself and just check that lockup, or you get whatever retailer you're buying it from to check it themselves. And if you happen to have one of these out in the wild, again, I have contacted QSP and they're committed to making sure that any of the ones that had those issues at the start are all taken care of and get a replacement or repair or whatever they're doing to fix it. They want to make sure, though, that no one has a knife where the lock is failing, definitely. All right, so there you go, guys. Those are my thoughts on the QSP Pelican, probably my favorite of all of the QSP knives that I've seen. The Worker would be a close second. I really, really like that one as well. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Use those links down below. It does help the channel a great deal. We'll talk to you soon.